Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bob Ford. I am the director of the Center for Energy and Environmental Studies here at Southern, and it is my pleasure to convene Earth Week 92 at Southern University. This program is the first formal part of a week of activities where we want to together celebrate nature and health and to be involved in activities that relate to acquiring the quality of environment that we all want. You will find that our theme, Saving an Endangered Species, us, is quite fitting for the distinguished speaker that we will have before us in just a few minutes. You will find that theme is overarching and will cover the nature of activities that you will witness for the next week, of which you will also be a part. I'm here this Earth Week Day in order to say to you that you will see a high profile on the part of Southern University in this area of environmental equality, the issues of, think back, the issues of environmental equity, which goes by a number of names, some of which you may hear here today. But now, let's get on with our program, and to get us started, we will begin with a prelude given to us by Ms. Elizabeth Collins. Now that we've been initially inspired, I want you to reflect on the fact that Earth Day is by no means, or Earth Week, a new celebration. This is the 22nd year of the celebration, and although it hasn't been a celebration that many minority communities have been involved with in the past, it clearly is now on the agenda for our April-May time frame for activity. I want you to consider the following. Within the last year, two well-known national civil rights organizations formed chapters in Baton Rouge. And within the last 2 months, the leader of the national NAACP, the national president, is a Baton Rougean and lives among us. Couple that with the fact that today our speaker is a civil rights leader in his own right, who brings us a message in a new segment of civil rights, one that we may not have considered as a civil rights issue up until now. This issue that he will talk about is one that we all will find to be consistent with our own experience and survival, and one that we will all pick up manners and become a part of. But just to play that out, the person who will give us an invocation to start this program off is one of those leaders of a civil rights organization. And at this time, we'll ask Reverend Reginald Pitcher, President of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Baton Rouge Chapter, to give us an invocation.
Thank you for our regional director, Reverend Avery Alexander, is here too today. Thank God for him. I would like to first of all apologize to Dr. Shavis on behalf of Lee. We will get together in September, Lord willing. Our scripture reading is coming from the 3rd chapter of the writings of the prophet Joel, 9th through 14th verses. It reads, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. 'Twill cause our mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be weakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get ye down, for the press is full, the vast overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the Lord is near. The day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The Lord has blessings to the reading of his holy word and to the hearers thereof, that we would kindly bow our heads in word of prayer. God, our help in ages past, all of our hope for the years to come. God of our weary years, the God of our silent tears, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God for whom these your servants now come with bowed down heads and humble hearts. We come, Father, asking that you continue to strengthen us where we are weak and build us up where we're torn down. Continue to be a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our pathway. Lead us from one good degree of grace to the other. Above all, bind our hearts together in Christian love that we might feel each other's care. Bind us so close together that one will not fall without the other. Give us 10,000 minds to go forward and not one to turn back. Please, Sir, have mercy. Father, we trust that you will give us the direction that you have us to travel, that you will lead us and guide us in the path of righteousness for your name's sake. We trust that you bless, dear God, those who are assembled here on this platform. Bless those who are assembled in the audience. Dear God, we trust that you will always go with us and stand by us. That when we finish this walk of life down here, that you'll give us a place in your kingdom, where every day will be Sunday and the Sabbath will have no end, where the wicked will cease their troubling, where the word be at rest. Blessed we ask in Jesus' name. May his sake we pray. Amen.
The person that will bring us greetings on behalf of the university is no stranger to Earth Day or Earth Week, for she was the original chairman of the Southern University Earth Week Committee. She still remains a member of the Earth Week Committee and has assumed recently a very important position in the university. She is now Dean of the Honors College. We'll bring Dr. Beverly Wade forward in order to bring greetings from the university.
Dr. Robert Ford, presiding officer of this program, Dr. Shavis, other special guests on the platform, to our distinguished community persons, friends, faculty, staff, and students. On behalf of the University Committee, I do bring you greetings. And I also welcome you to this very, very significant activity. We have grown over the past 3 years. I remember our very first official celebration was very small. However, it started off with a very large rally in the F.G. Clark Activity Center, and the Reverend Jesse Jackson was present. And this brought a spirit of renewal here to the campus that we have tried to continue since that time. We're doing well. I'm sure that the administrators on the Baton Rouge campus would like you to know that in terms of our environment and bringing relevant issues to our students, making our community conscious and aware of what is going on, we think that we are approaching the cutting edge of that situation. I think now that we need to move toward a realm in which we can concentrate on issues that are even more significant to us as people, and that we can concentrate that effort in the right path. We certainly want to rely on you for that direction. We recognize in our community and among us various groups that have become pronounced in their work, and they're listed here on the program. We acknowledge the Southern University Center for Energy and Environmental Studies. We acknowledge the Southern University Earth Week Committee, the Department of Biology in particular, the Louisiana Environmental Action Network, the Gulf Coast Tenants Organization, and the Southern Organizing Committee for Economic and Social Justice, and there are others. Many of you, I came to know you when I chaired that committee 3 years ago. We say again to you that we are ready to assist and move forward in the direction that we need to go under your guidance. Again, I welcome you and thank you for your presence.
The next person that will bring you, I don't know very much about her. Her name is Mary Lee Orr, and I haven't been to a meeting that had environmental in the topic in the last 2 years, and she wasn't there. So I guess she has something to do with environment. By title, she is director of the Louisiana Environmental Action Network, better known as LEAN. And I guess I owe her something else. I showed up at a meeting last Sunday, or was it Sunday before last, that was being held in her building. So I'm beginning to believe that somehow LEAN is one of the centers of environmental activities, at least in Baton Rouge and probably in the state. So with that, I bring you a new friend to Southern University, at least as far as I'm concerned, and bring you the person in the name of Mary Lee Orr.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here this afternoon. I don't have any formal presentation really to share with you, but I do have a message. And let's think of, since I'm supposed to take the statement of the occasion, that sounds so important, I want to get the message across. At the top of one of the goals here for Earth Week, it says, one world, one consciousness, one chance to make it work. And it says, saving an endangered species, us. I wish that were just a slogan. I wish that I didn't see every day that truly we are an endangered species. I have the privilege to travel this state, the United States, talk to folks like you, with one common thread, that often they bought a piece of the American dream. They bought a small home or rented a small piece of property to find that they have a giant neighbor next door that's making them ill. The children cannot play outside. They begin to have health effects, and they feel very, very powerless, and that dream becomes a nightmare. So we find that our very civil rights are violated. And the challenge for us as people, and I feel almost uncomfortable here as a white person, I guess you can see that I'm white, among my people of color friends, embarrassed to say to you, who've had such a long struggle, that it's not finished. That for you, the majority of these facilities are located next to low-income and minority people. The folks who are sometimes least likely to be able to speak out. They are not privileged like yourself. They have not had an education. Some of the folks I assist don't know how to make a phone call to someone like Kip Poland or Representative Alexander Avery, or write that letter. So we have to build those bridges, and that is our challenge today. Because this isn't about being black or being white. It's about the fact that the future generations of our state that we love so much are dying, literally. We have seen some of the highest cancer rates in the country. I stood with mothers when they bury their children, workers who've been exposed, who keep on being exposed because they're afraid to lose their job, that economic blackmail. So we have to, those of us who are privileged enough today to come together to care about this earth that God gave us. We have that beautiful invocation. The earth is calling to us. I was talking to Pat Mahan, who's my colleague, who's filming that on the way here, saying that, of course, the earth is a reflection of ourselves, and what we're doing to it is we're destroying ourselves. I got the privilege of going to look at the beautiful banks of the university and see the Mississippi River. What a beautiful natural resource. It's dying, literally, with herbicides and pesticides. But before we become overwhelmed, I have to tell you there is success story after success story, because I'm really a people person. I could give you all this technical data about we absorb more toxins than anyone else, and now we're number 2 instead of number 1, and we have 13,000 oil field waste pits, and on about deep well injection. But what does that mean until it comes in your backyard? It came in my backyard because my second son was born with a lung disease. And when I went in to see my small son, and I saw him, his chest touching his back, I thought I could never take the ability to breathe again for granted. And when I brought my son home to East Baton Rouge Parish, I found out he was more susceptible to respiratory problems. And within that year, the air here was unhealthy to breathe 17 times. I couldn't believe that I had moved to a community where you had to watch on the TV whether I could bring my child outdoor that day. And then I learned about my neighbors in Alston, my people of color family, that I was not aware of, and I was ashamed that I had not put my hand out before. And we've united. They've done incredible things here. She's very proud of that community, proud of the university and the involvement of what they've done. I guess what I want to tell us today is that we need to empower ourselves on this issue, to build those bridges, to be stronger, to hold people accountable, to hold our legislators accountable, to honor those ones like that are sitting on the platform with us today, to thank them, because it's not easy to go out on point duty, I call it. When you're looking back and not even your brothers are behind you because they're not really sure of what the constituency back home is thinking, because some of the constituency has a whole heck of a lot of money. So they're not sure. And so you have to stand there with them or call them and thank them when they come forward. Because there are other gentlemen in this room who have broken down the barriers of race. They've broken the bondage that many of us, or you particularly, have had. But we still have that one last one. We're being held captive by an environment that's killing us. I don't want that to be depressing. I want it to be a challenge to you in this room, to unite with me, with our organization, with all these people on this stage, and one another. Don't leave here today without feeling that you are part of a community about Earth Week. That you are going to change your life in some way, whether it's to recycle, or if we need a phone call at the legislative session. But do something, I'd appreciate it. And I have to say, since I have 2 little people in my house, I want to say one more thing. Maybe today, or this week, let's not be black, or white, or red, but let's be green, as Kermit the Frog would say. And as he would tell you right up front, I can always see Lena Horne singing on Sesame Street. That song, It's Not Easy Being Green. It's not easy. I don't have to tell you that life isn't easy, but the price that we'll pay will be our children and the future generations. So I'm honored to truly to be here with you today. I'm going to share with you a little earth prayer, and then I'm finished because we've got a very important person I'm excited to get to meet because I've heard so much about him. Okay? Let there be peace, welfare, and righteousness in every part of the world. Let confidence and friendship prevail for the good of East and West, for the good of the needy South, for the good of all humanity. Let the people inspire their leaders, helping them to seek peace by peaceful means, helping them and urging them to build a better world, to work with a home for everybody, a world with food and work for everybody, a world with spiritual freedom for everybody. Let industry serve humanity and produce waste that serves nature. Let technology respect the holiness of Mother Earth. Let those who control the mass media contribute to create mutual understanding, contribute to create optimism and confidence. Let ordinary people like ourselves meet by the millions across the borders. Let them create a universal network of love and friendship. Let billions of human beings cooperate to create a good future for their children and grandchildren. Let us survive in peace and harmony with Mother Earth. I thank you for the privilege of being here today.
Thank you, Mary Lee, for the occasion. Forgive me for a minute. I want to introduce the introducer. Usually you just say, I'm going to have this person introduce the speaker. But this person who will introduce the person to speak to us deserves at least a moment of introduction. In the Center for Energy and Environmental Studies, we endeavor to have students involved in real-world, real-time activities. And Cassandra Mack was one of the newest workers in the center who happened to overhear me in a telephone conversation say to someone from being staff that I had a conflict and I would not be able to attend the first National People of Color Environmental Leadership Summit, which was held in Washington last October. Yeah, that's about October. Anyway, in listening to my declining, she says, well, Dr. Ford, I think we ought to have somebody to go to that conference. And I looked around and I noticed that most people were already scheduled to be someplace. And I kind of forgot about it. The next day she came back. She said, Dr. Ford, somebody needs to go to that conference, that summit. So I told her, I said, well, there's nobody to go. She said, well, I'll go. So I said, young lady, have you ever been to Washington? She said, well, I've never even been out of the state. I said, you ever been on an airplane? She said, well, I've been on a bus. I said, do you know how to check into a hotel? She said, no, but I can find out. It was like 4 days before the meeting, and if you are affiliated with Southern, you know you can't really get a travel, particularly with an advance together in 4 days. Well, she did it, and she went, and she was a delegate, and she got a resolution passed. That, I think, deserves some attention, and Cassandra Mack is that young lady. But when she came back, she talked about nothing but Ben Chavis, and when Florence also went, the three of us represented Southern, and Florence said to me that, you know, the one thing that I think would make a real difference for her is to have her introduce Ben Chavis, and today she had that opportunity. Cassandra Mack.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and guests. I am greatly honored to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis, Jr. He is Executive Director of the Commission of Racial Justice of the 1.7 million United Church of Christ National Offices. A native of Oxford, North Carolina, he is an ordained minister of the United Church of Christ and a 25-year veteran of the Civil Rights Movement. He received a Bachelor of Arts degree in Chemistry from the University of North Carolina. He received his Master's of Divinity degree, Magna Cum Laude, from the Divinity School of Duke University and the Doctor of Ministry degree from Howard University. He He has also completed course requirements for the Doctor of Philosophy degree in Systematic Theology at Union Theological Seminary in New York. As a member of the famed Wilmington 10, he unjustly spent 4.5 years in North Carolina prisons during the 1970s. In 1978, Amnesty International cited the Wilmington 10 as the first official case of political prisoners in the United States. On December 4, 1980, the U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned the trumped-up convictions of the Wilmington 10, clearing their records and their names. Professionally, Dr. Chavis is an experienced national civil rights leader. Under his leadership, the Commission has sponsored successful freedom rides to the Alabama Belt and to Chicago to ensure successful voting rights and enhance voter mobilization. Issued the landmark report Toxic Waste and Race in the United States and provided national leadership in the struggle against the rise of racially motivated violence. Last year in October, Dr. Chavis convened the first National Minority Environmental Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. The summit probed environmental racism, that minorities, despite being disproportionately affected by pollution and hazardous waste, have long been locked out of policy debate. This summit established several principles of environmental justice. Dr. Chavis is the author of 2 books, An American Prisoner for Human Rights and Songs of Prisoners. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm greatly honored to introduce to you Dr. Ben Chavis.
Thank you very much. To my dear friend Cassandra, I want to say how pleased we were in October to have her and over 600 other sisters and brothers together for 4 days in the nation's capital to address the question of environmental justice, to challenge the problem of environmental racism, and to help build an expanding environmental justice movement. Brother Dr. Ford, who's the MC and head of the Center for Energy and Environmental Studies here at Southern University, to all of my colleagues up on the head, and all of my colleagues in the audience. I bring you greetings this evening from the United Church of Christ Commission for Racial Justice. I also bring you greetings from the Southern Organizing Committee for Social and Economic Justice. This is a time when literally people throughout the world are focusing new attention on the critical need to rescue the environment from global degradation. And certainly here in the United States of America, the question of environmental degradation has been placed on the top of many different agendas. And so for Earth Week here at Southern University and the activities throughout the state of Louisiana, it seems to me if there's any place in this nation that ought to have a national focus, it ought to be Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It ought to be this corridor called from Baton Rouge down to Louisiana, down to New Orleans, called Cancer Alley. One of the things we did in 1987 when we published the first national study that correlated race and the environment was that we tested every zip code in the United States. You tell me what your zip code is, I can tell you what the median price of a house in that zip code, the median income in that zip code. I can tell you something of the racial and social demographics. But we took Environmental Protection Agency data and correlated with census data. It was two, what we call cross-sectional analysis, statistical analysis. And we asked various questions of the data. You know, when you do research, it's just not a compilation of statistics. You pose certain questions to statistics to get some answers to some questions. And we asked of the data whether or not, well, we wanted to find out what was the most determinant variables that determine the location of toxic waste facilities in the United States. Those are commercial and those that are uncontrolled. Commercial means licensed by the EPA or state or county governments. Uncontrolled are those unlicensed, but still very much have a present devastating effect in our community. And I'm sure most of you know that the study showed comprehensively in all 50 states, in all zip codes, that race proved to be the most determinant variable. That it was not poverty, that it was not geology, that it was not geography, it was race. And this is important because we found out that African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and to some extent Asian Americans were disproportionately exposed to these environmental hazards. And that is not to say that whites are not exposed. Whites are exposed. But what our study did for the first time was raise the question of the disproportionality of the exposure. If somebody had told me a little longer, about 10 years ago, that I would be spending my time in 1992 with quote-unquote environmentalists, I would say no. Because I got to spend my time with our sisters and brothers being denied jobs, being denied housing, being denied health care, the life and death issues that affect our community. But I found out that there was no more greater life and death issue than environmental degradation. I found out that our little children, not only born in Cancer Island, but born in many parts of this country, were having rare forms of adolescent cancer, respiratory diseases, all kinds of ailments, lead poisoning, directly related to environmental exposure. And so I have become an environmentalist out of necessity. That it wasn't good enough for me to say that I'm for voting rights. And then the people who have the opportunity to vote don't have the help to get to the polls. It's not good enough for me to be just for school desegregation, and children, when they go to the desegregated schools, have so much lead in their blood, they can't learn. If you know about lead poisoning, that once it gets into your system, you can't detoxify it. You carry that weight all of your life. And so for us sisters and brothers, every week, this week, and every week, environmental justice is a question of life and death. It's a question of struggle. It's a question of organizing. It's a question of mobilizing. It's a question of institution building. That's why I'm glad to hear about the Center for Energy and Environmental Studies here at Baton Rouge. And Dr. Ford, I know from personal experience, it's hard to be an academic and an activist at the same time. Hello? It's hard. Our institutional setting is not geared to mobilize in the community. And particularly historically African American universities. Southern is one of the biggest. There ought to be more struggle coming off this university than any school in the country. Not only because of where the university is located, juxtaposed around all of these environmental hazards, but the whole history of this university, if somebody will pull a couple off, has been a history of struggle. And every generation is called to fulfill its sense of mission, its sense of vision for the future. And so when I heard that Dr. Ford and others had organized this center, I said, uh-oh, Southern's getting ready to join the struggle again. And that's good. I'm really being very honest. I think that in order to keep a movement alive, one of the things we talk about is institution building. And so we need the grassroots movement to be connected to our centers on the institutions. And the centers on the institutions need to be connected to the grassroots movements. And so that's why we're here this week, to lift up Earth Week. Bible says, the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. God has created a balance in creation, but out of greed, out of human greed, out of avarice and exploitation, the ecological balance of the world is being distorted. And it's interesting to me that when they announced that the ozone layer was being depleted, a lot of people started calculating, well, how much longer do we have? Rather than saying there will be no more ozone depletion, people are plotting out, well, how much more can we explore until the whole thing is depleted? In other words, we stand this evening to talk about environmental justice, not as an isolated issue. You cannot talk about environmental justice without talking about economic justice, without talking about ecological justice, without talking about political justice. The three major political candidates, two of them announced and one of them is not announced. I'm talking about Clinton, Bush, and Perot. None of them really have this issue at the top of the agenda. What they have at the top of the agenda is more of the same. And they wonder why, at least in our communities, there's sort of lukewarm political activities because no candidate to date has emerged or articulated any vision of how this country is going to come together. And that's why I was so pleased when Cassandra, Ford, and Florence, Pat, Alexander, and many others came together last October because we broke a myth. There's a stereotype. The myth is that you cannot get African Americans and white Americans and Hispanic Americans and Native Americans and Asian Americans to work together on anything in this country. Of course, here in Louisiana, you showed you that a multiracial coalition can even defeat David Duke. See, it's interesting, everybody talks about David Duke running, but nobody talks about how he lost. What was the organizing that went into defeating David Duke? And that's why you need to hold all Slick Ed more accountable for some of the government. I don't want to embarrass about it. But I'm saying that if somebody in this room helped put Edwards in office, somebody in this room must hold Edwards accountable for how the bridge that got him across that river. Cannot just stand with the petrochemical companies, but must stand with these communities that have been disproportionately exposed. When I first heard about this week's activity, I was so eager to come. I was so thankful to get the invitation because, as you know, the Southern Organizing Committee, which I work along with many of you, we're planning a major conference, September 18th, 19th, and 20th, here in Baton Rouge. It's a conference dealing with community and labor approach to the question of environmental justice. And people from all over the southern region will be coming to Baton Rouge. And so I see Earth Week as a preparatory week. A week for us because you will be the host. But many sisters and brothers will be coming here. They're going to be wanting to know about the Center for Energy and Environmental Studies. They're going to be wanting to know about the Gulf Coast Tenants organizing work. They're going to be wanting to know about our strategies here in Louisiana and the vision that we offer for the rest of the nation. Because I believe if we can build an effective environmental justice movement in in the state of Louisiana, in particular Cancer Alley, the import of that movement would have earth-shaking repercussions throughout the land. We're also working to ensure that that conference be a multiracial conference. Certainly, the African American community in this state is disproportionately exposed. But we understand that it is in our interest to build multiracial coalitions. That's why I'm glad you're here, my sister. And we need more white people to be in this movement. We are not saying take the toxic waste out of our communities and put it in the white community. What we're saying is no community should be exposed. You see, one of the good things, if you can remember, the civil rights movement always had a moral stand that it stood on. Because of the injustice perpetrated on black people, we articulated a vision where justice would be for all people. That is why, even though we know that disproportionately environmental injustice is in our community, our vision is to have an inclusive environmental justice movement where environmental justice will be for all of God's people. No child of God ought to have lead in their blood. Children are not born with lead in their blood. They get it because policy decisions are made that allow them to be exposed to life-threatening substances that they should not be exposed to. One of the things that we're doing now out of the summit, as we adopted the 17 principles of environmental justice, we're trying to get some of the larger environmental organizations to understand that you just can't be aware and you just can't be concerned about endangered species in the water, like certain kind of fish, or endangered species in the forest, you know, the spotted owl. I like all owls. But if you're going to be concerned about the owls and the fish, you got to be concerned about the bloods in the community who are also endangered species. Because we know one of the reasons why this society tolerates the destruction of plant life and animal life is because this society tolerates the destruction of human life. And so you can't save plant life and animal life if you're not going to save human life. It just doesn't, it's not logical. I see Brother Alexander and Brother Kip Holcomb, and they're working in Louisiana legislature. I know that a lot of things go down in the Louisiana legislature, not logical. Don't make common sense. That's why we need more brothers. And sisters. Amen. Probably more sisters than we need more brothers. Because in the front line of these communities, I want to tell you, one of the things I've seen throughout the United States, and them grassroots structures, you know who's providing leadership? Sisters. And sisters need to be given credit for their work. Not only credit for their work, but they have to provide some of the leadership of the new environmental justice movement. And that's what we're trying to build. And that's what we're trying to organize. So I did not come this evening to be a prophet of doom. I've come this evening to Baton Rouge to share with you that there is some good news. There is some good news, y'all. But first of all, it comes that the earth is the Lord's. The earth does not belong to Exxon. The earth does not belong to Union Carbide. The earth does not belong, what's the name that comes over there somewhere? Flash Oil Company. Hunt thing. Yes. And isn't it interesting? Check this out. H. Ross Perot has not even announced. Nobody He hasn't articulated one platform, but 20%, over 1/5 of all the elected voters, just this past weekend said they will vote for him for president. Now, what is it that H. Watsonville has? He's got more than money. He has the white male image that this society desperately yearns for. It's like a cowboy out of Texas is going to ride to the White House with a big white 10-gallon hat on a white horse and save America.
Yes.
Mythology. 1992. That's a very mythical year. 500-year celebration of Columbus. And we all know the only thing Columbus discovered was that he was lost. That's the only thing. Mythology. And so one of the reasons why we need a center for the study of energy and environment, we got to demythologize reality. Because one thing about it, they say, well, we don't know nothing about chemicals. When chemistry started in Africa. Hello. That's a fact. And I was so overjoyed this past weekend, and y'all seen the current edition of Scientific American? You know, we read Scientific American. Cover story. And they have genetic evidence that Eve was an African woman. Genetic evidence that civilization came out of an African woman. That's good news. Because if we would get caught up in the myths of America, it would make us feel bad, y'all. It would make us feel like we haven't accomplished anything. When we've accomplished many things. The very fact that we are still alive is an accomplishment. To have life after all of this degradation, the fact that there's some blood still alive in Cancer Alley is good news. All this stuff has been done. I'm not just talking about chemicals, because they dump more than organic substances. They dump something on us that's inorganic, and that's the myths and stereotypes about us. No one is born hating themselves. Just like I believe that no one is born a racist. I don't think all whites are racist. No, they're not born that way. But a lot of them will come that way. Because they see us in their economic interest to practice racism, to stay on top. Racism has always had an economic nuance. That's what slavery was about. And that's what it remains. So what we are saying, Martin said it, I guess, best. He said we're called not only to be the soul of America, but we're called to have a vision that will save the soul of America, all of America. Isn't it interesting that the very victims of environmental degradation can now have a definitive role in what the environment is and what is environmentalism? We have to move from a predominant concern about economy to a predominant concern about ecology. The economy must be a subset of the ecology, and not vice versa. Anytime you have everything in a subset of the economy, somebody's going to get exploited. Some peoples are going to get taken advantage of. Somebody's water, somebody's air, somebody's land is going to get polluted. Some of you have heard me tell this little story. You know, there are many agricultural stories in the Bible. You have to read the Old Testament. It's full of agriculture. I was born on a farm. People writing history say, well, I wonder why the slaves adhered to Christianity so readily? Well, it wasn't a new thing. They knew about God before slavery. But the thing is that, as you know, I spent a little time in prison. Somebody said we're all in prison. Well, I was in a show enough prison. And one of the things that I learned was that even when you're in this closed container called prison, there's a possibility to organize. There's a possibility to hold your head up, even when the cards are stacked against you. That's why I really, you know, it kind of makes me very concerned when I see people today take for granted the progress we've made. We've come a long way, y'all. And we still haven't gotten where we should be. But a lot of what we have today we take for granted. Like the land itself. I see Sister Obadella in the audience. One of the things the RNA were trying to teach us 20 years ago was the importance of land. Today we lose something like 10,000 acres of land every 24 hours across the country. We're going to be a landless people. By the year 2000, we're not counting. And that's because we haven't listened enough to what our grandparents and great-grandparents used to tell us about the value of the land and the value of the water, the value of the air. Sometimes we become so materialistic because the values of society are materialistic. We give up that which is sacred. And there's nothing more sacred than one's own spirituality. But you have to understand that one's spirituality is inextricably linked to the quality of the air, the quality of the water, the quality of the land, the quality of the community in which we live. And so in 1976, another mythical year, that was the year we celebrated the bicentennial, I was sent to Caledonia Prison Farm, one of these wide agricultural farms. And particularly for the young people, I always have to tell this story because I don't think God allows us to go through struggles without us learning something. For the children, if everybody up here had a chance to testify, and I know this is Sunday evening, I know most of you went to church this morning, but I just want to say, you know, when the Lord looks out for me, I got to tell him. I am not ashamed of being in prison because my God did not let me down while I was in prison. And I know if the Lord didn't let me down while I was in, he sure enough going to let me down while I'm out here. But sometimes we don't want to turn to each other or for each other until we're in trouble. And I don't accept the proposition, well, it takes a crisis to get us together. Because if that was the truth, we'd be the most together people in the world. We'd have no crisis. Crisis in and of itself is not enough. Our problem is not coming together, staying together. And what is the glue that's going to hold us together? We've got to have an understanding of our reality and a commitment to challenge every form of injustice that's in our midst. So I was sent out to this prison farm. You think Louisiana got some big farms. Eastern North Carolina got some big farms. Most of them are prison farms. Loaded up with African-American men. Y'all got a prison down here called Angola Prison? I heard about it. Just like Caledonia Prison Farm. And Caledonia is in Halifax County, the eastern part of North Carolina. The prison is so big, they don't have a fence around. You can't run. You can't run away from the prison. They just let you run all day in the helicopter. And so of this prison farm, there were 600 inmates, mostly black. And I remember on the day I was transferred from Central Prison in Raleigh, it was in February of '76, to Caledonia Prison Farm, the bus held 54 seats on the bus. And Pat, they had 78 people on the bus. And of the 78 people, the only white person on the bus was the bus driver. The rest were black inmates. And as this prison bus pulled up to the prison, I looked out the window and saw all these brothers, hundreds of them, out there, you know, toiling the soul. Prison guards on horseback, standing over them with shotguns. This is in 1976. I said, Lord have mercy. Slavery is still going on. So I said a little prayer. I always say a little prayer to the Lord. I said, Lord, let me into thy field so that we can have some vineyard produced for the struggle. You see, when I see oppression, we took a tour today of Austin. Sister Florence rolled me around, looked around, super fun site, across the track, black community, people drinking well water, close to Rollins, dump site, somebody raising cattle right next to an incinerator. Who in the world is going to eat that beef? Lord have mercy. And I saw a little bayou running down right beside the dump site. Lord have mercy, somebody eating crawfish out of that bayou. And I felt just like I felt when I was sitting in the Caledonia prison hall. I got to get out of this car and do something about this. Couldn't wait to get out of that bus. Went and got my little prison uniform. And in Caledonia Prison Farm, they don't have big individual cells. They have what they call dormitories. They got too many inmates to put in the cell. You got 70 inmates in one little room. I never seen bunk beds stacked up 8 high. Warehousing brothers. Brothers glad to get out of the dormitory into the field. It's so awful. Awful smell, awful heat. So I was assigned to gun squad number 6. Kip here can tell this story in Texas 2 weeks ago. And there were 20 inmates per gun squad. Sometimes they have 20 different gun squads out there. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, they call out your number. And next morning, they call out gun squad number 6. I got in line. They gave me a hoe. Y'all know what a hoe is, right? Ain't been that long. Some had a pitchfork, some had a rake, I had a hoe. And we marched out to the field. 2 prison guards, they were white, on horseback, 12 gauge, buckshot gun. Marched us out in the field. And then the guy said, start hitting the ground. So I started hitting because he had the gun on me, but I stopped. I said, wait a minute. There's nothing out here. Give us some seeds or something. Let us plant something. Don't make us expend our God-given energy and labor just in futility. You can't be rehabilitating nobody, making them just do something for nothing. Prison guard put the shell in his thing, clicked and said, hit the ground. So, you know, you gotta give us logic. I started hitting the ground. But one of the reasons why the black church is important, we have to reach back sometime into our legacy. And I reached back into my black church tradition and said, Lord, this is not the first time we've been told to hit the ground when there's nothing there to plant. So I started, Pat, as you know, I reached back and grabbed one of our songs. Singing is important, y'all. Sometimes we either have to make a decision, we're going to moan, cry, or sing. And I decided I was going to sing, you know, this little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. All over Caledonia prison. I'm going to let it shine. And the Lord has given everybody in here has a gift from God. We all have gifts. With an S, not one gift, many gifts. God is just that way. Creation itself is a gift. The air, the water, the grass, that's gifts. And we're supposed to use, not dominate, not tear up, not destroy, but be in harmony with, use. Humanity is a gift. So, as I was singing this song, I started using another gift that God has given most African people. He's given some other people too, but God has given most African people a sense of the beat. You know what I mean? We do things on beat. You know, you take a little child, listen to the radio before you know it, they into the beat. Every time I see MC Hammer, you know, I said, that brother got a gift from the Lord. He can move every bone, every muscle on beat. So I started hitting the ground and singing just a lot of mine on beat. You know what happened? All the bloods in the gun squad, my gun squad, number 6, started hitting the ground and singing the song on beat. Now the other brothers who were not too far away, one of the things that organizing and mobilizing does, once you get something going, if it's logical, if it makes sense, people join in. And so the other gun squad, the brothers in the other gun squads, before you know it, we had 200 or 300 brothers out of Caledonia Prison Farm singing the same song, hitting the same ground on the same beat. Now the prison superintendent, his name is Mr. Simons, he looked out from the binoculars and saw all of us hit the ground again. He jumped in the station wagon and drove by and said, "Hold it, stop!" And I said, "Mr. Superintendent, we're just doing what the prison guard wants us to do." He said, "Yeah, but the problem is you're doing it together." You see, a prison system is only a microcosmic mirror image of the larger society. Same thing that goes down there goes on out here. Same control factors are in place. The same divide and conquer things that they do to us. So obviously, they didn't let me go out in the field anymore. But what we started doing was organizing the cell block anyway. You know what happened when we started organizing? All of the drugs stopped in the prison. Prison guards were selling drugs to the inmates. And we started getting the brothers to understand that you don't destroy thyself. You don't destroy your body. You don't destroy that which God has given you. And do you know, inmates understood that. And in got off the drugs, they stopped all the fighting. Fighting used to go on every day at California. Never heard so much cussing in my life. But all the cussing stopped. And you would have thought that those in charge of the prison system would have been happy that the violence stopped, the drugs stopped, all the negative attitudes stopped. Sanders called me to his office and said, "Reverend, we got a problem." He said, "We're not going to allow you to take over the prison." I said, "I'm not taking over the prison. I don't work for the Department of Corrections." And I said, "You should be glad, Mr. Superintendent, that the inmates here are not doing negative things, but doing something positive." And he said, "This is not the purpose of the prison." I said, "Well, the message I just want to leave with you, my sisters and brothers, is that in fact, most of the negative, self-destructive things that are going on in our community are controlled from outside of the community. Who brings the drugs into our community? Who brings the negative stereotypes to our community? Who tells our children that our lives are worthless? So, my sisters and brothers, I'm going into these issues because I want you to understand that when we talk about building an environmental justice movement, we're talking about building a movement that's all-inclusive. You cannot, as Martin used to say, and Malcolm too, be against one form of injustice and sleep with another form of injustice.
Yes. Yes.
Our ancestors cried out of the grave for us to have a new awakening and a new turnaround as we come together. Brother Mario Deli, President of the Republic of Africa. And so we've come a mighty long ways, my sisters and brothers, and I know that even the term environmental, we have to get used to this term because for too long it was an exclusive term used primarily by predominantly white environmental organizations. And in a sense, what we're trying to do is say to the environmentalists, quote unquote, that you have to be concerned about the injustices in our community. But we're also saying to sisters and brothers in our community, you've got to be concerned about the ecology. And that's what's so beautiful about the environmental issue is it's really emerging as a bridge issue. I'm able to bring sisters and brothers from different diverse communities together around this issue like never before. Check out Native American sisters and brothers. They have been trying to tell us for centuries about the sacredness of the air, the land, and the water. And now we're understanding more and more about the spirituality that exists in the Native American community and where that links up with our own spirituality. And so I do believe, the good news is that despite what happens in November of '92, be it Bush, be it Clinton, or be it Perot, we're going to build a movement. We're going to change this society. And I mean by changing society, we're going to alter the fundamental structure of its economics, the fundamental structure of its politics, so that the ecology of God's creation itself can be more justly understood and more justly practiced by all sisters and brothers. And some of you may say, well, what do you base this on, Reverend? Well, we really don't have an alternative. This is not pick and choose choice time. If we don't rescue the environment from the greedy people of this nation, none of us will be around to talk about the other forms of injustice. That's what time it is. It is a new time of urgency. It's a new time of movement building. And I think that because of the things we've learned out of grassroots organizing, again, Pat Brown can tell you about how tenants and others understand this issue. And we have to wake up some of our middle class sisters and brothers. That's another myth. I didn't hear amen on that. But y'all need to check out the statistics. Relatively speaking, there has not been a closing of the income gap between blacks and whites in the last 30 years. And somebody say, well, no, I make more. You make more relative to what? And to who? Because you have a larger mortgage does not mean that you have gained parity with folk that did not need a mortgage. And so one of the things we must have is not to let this so-called class syndrome emerge into our community. Because I go to many communities and people say, well, Reverend, it's no longer a race struggle, it's about class. No, that's not true. We're all in this same boat. Yes. And the poisons in our water, and the poisons in our air, the poisons in our land are not going to discriminate based on what side of town you live on. And if we do not deal with those victims that are acutely disproportionately exposed to these environmental hazards, it's only a matter of time when it's going to be in your family, in your community. It's going to be in you. And so my plea is for us not to allow the so-called wise youth movement or the other movements that are organized in the Heritage Foundation has just written a paper about how to divide the so-called environmentalists. To get them arguing whether or not it's class versus race. See, I don't argue. This is like arguing about. I do not argue things that don't need to be argued about. what we have to be about is waking each other up, embracing one another, and moving forward, and then raising up a new generation of Malcolms and Martins and Harriet Tubmans and Rosa Parks. So glad to see sister like this, Cassandra. The Southern University needs to be producing the new generation of leaders, the new generation of activists, the new generation of mobilizers, the new generation of organizers. If we don't, they ain't gonna come from LSU, y'all. I'm not down in LSU, man, don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying that this institution has a historic responsibility to the community from out of which it emerged. Now I say that for all of the HBCs, the historically black colleges. We must not get led off to some diversion of our calling and of our purpose. And the last thing I want to say is that I'm going to go back to the importance of the conference. It's going to be September the 18th, 19th, and 20th. I'm going to be back. Sisters and brothers, many of the sisters and brothers that were at the People of Color Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. are going to be here. And by September, we're going to need a shot in the arm. It's going to have to be a very motivating, spiritual uplift moment. Because I know it's going to happen after these Democratic and Republican conventions. The handwriting is on the wall. Not one new vision, not one new articulation of bringing this society together. Now the Lord is at work. While we stand here today, our society is demographically changing. Despite all the attempts to control the population, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans are growing in this society by leaps and bounds. And that doesn't worry me. That's the Lord at work. What we have to do is to make sure that we do not have an American apartheid situation emerge. A few days ago, even in South Africa, the majority of whites, even in South Africa, the majority of whites in South Africa, because whites are not the majority. The majority of whites, who were the only ones that could vote, voted a new direction to change and dismantle apartheid. Very interesting vote. And when I heard that on the news, I thought to myself, now what if in the United States there was an exclusive white vote about dismantling American racism? How would the vote come out? I know here in Louisiana, the majority of whites voted for David Duke. How would the vote come out, y'all? I foresee today that our sisters and brothers in South Africa are going to be demonstrating around the U.S. Embassy in South Africa to get freedom, a free America. Sisters and brothers in the third world are going to be sending missionaries here. And so this is homework time. As the world moves to a greater understanding of the environment. This June, first 2 weeks in June, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development will be in Brazil. I'll be there, and some of you will be there. Raising up the issue of environmental justice in a global context. And I always want to let you know, we've heard from my sisters and brothers in Brazil and Africa and Latin America and in Mexico and other places. And the biggest question is, where is the movement inside of the United States? Because they realize that the IMF and the World Bank and the whole global environmental policy is controlled by the United States. And so if we're going to save the global environment, we have to heighten the movement here. And so what is done in Baton Rouge not only has national implications, it has global implications. Don't underestimate the struggle here. Don't underestimate the challenges that are before us. And don't underestimate the victory that we can win if we organize, if we mobilize, if we come together. And so the conference in September is not the end of it. That's another moment where we expand our movement, where we come and share the grassroots struggles across the southern region, where we build a stronger network across lines of race, across lines of socioeconomic understanding, where we make a commitment to transform Louisiana God bless you.
Brother Lady has one on us, and it's not just the Center for Energy and Environmental Studies that has to respond to the challenge that Dr. Chavis has laid before us. We'll need your help too. I'd like to, at this time, make a token presentation to Reverend Chavis that expresses Southern University and the Southern University Earth Day and Earth Week program's appreciation for his coming and being with us. I'm going to ask Ben to come forward at this time. Let me read the inscription from this plaque, which in a very token way represents our feelings and our thanks for you and what your works are. Presented to Dr. Ben Chavis in appreciation of all your efforts to protect the human resources of our nation. Your work is an inspiration to all. By the Gulf Coast Tenant Organization, the Louisiana Environmental Action Network, Southern Organizing Committee for Economic and Social Justice, and Southern University, April 26, 1992. Let me bring to the podium a man who has made a name for himself, not just here in the South, but around this country. And I must admit that I didn't know the impact that he had made until I showed up in Washington last October. And it was there that I learned that Pat Bryant is not just Louisiana, is not just Southern USA, but he's USA. Pat Bryant will introduce a representative of the Black Caucus.
I want to thank all of you, Dr. Ford. Certainly very good to be here this evening after so many years of struggling out on the battlefield. And certainly we've been given great gifts with Dr. Chavis sharing of his experiences and his vision about the road ahead. I've got the tough job, the great job of introducing someone that everybody in this room knows. A man who has been on the city council in this city. A man who has become known as Mr. Environment in legislative circles, in the legislature of Louisiana. Worked along with the grassroots movement to build the kind of pressure to pass legislation. And has now become the chairman of the Louisiana House of Representatives Subcommittee on the Environment, and is also chairman of the Environmental Committee of the Southern Legislative Association. By now, everybody in this room has it, I'm talking about Kip Holden, who has often been out on the legislative side when there were matters affecting Allison and the black community, when you couldn't get others. And we're looking for Kip Holden and the Black Caucus, which is now, I understand, the largest Black caucus in the country. We're looking for them, I think they're now numbering 32, is that correct? We're looking for them to do great wonders here. Because one of the things that we need leadership across this country. As we look at the maps that the United Church of Christ, the Mission for Racial Justice, produced for us, which showed where the poisons are put around the country. The places where we found most of the poison, there are our communities. We find those communities are communities where we have a lot of elected officials who are African Americans, who are Native Americans, who are Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans. somehow or another, the Black Caucus of Louisiana has to pull together the muscle they've got, unite those rural caucus folk and some of those governments from the cities, and change the face of this legislature. It can be done. Now, we have to do our jobs. Brother, we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to do that job. We want y'all to go back in there and to pull together this whole thing with 32 together blacks. 32 together blacks. They're not all brothers. They're sisters too. I think we can do it. But we're going to have them to come for the work they've already done. They've really made a difference. We want Brother Holden to come in to accept some tokens for the work that's been done by the Black Caucus.
Dr. Ford, Reverend Chavis, to other members of the dais, to all of you, thank you for allowing me to accept these awards on behalf of the Black Caucus. I bring you greetings on behalf of those young men and women who are out there fighting every day to get rid of the injustices perpetrated upon our people. But I also let you know that the chairman sends his deepest regrets about not being able to be here today. His mother died and they funeralized her on yesterday, so obviously you can understand the situation there. We want you to know that we are elated at the fact that our numbers have grown, that we will be out there fighting. We'd like to congratulate Southern University for its aggressive efforts in regards to ridding the community of the environmental blight. And we also would like to leave each of you with a challenge. That many times in the past, that if you've seen the environmental movement, you have not seen many blacks normally on TV and in some of those other areas. But around this state, I can tell you firsthand that there are a number of fighters in the community dealing with environmental issues who are black. We need your help. We need you to get involved, and not just for one day like today, or not just for 1 week, but we need you year-round. We need the students here, because the students here mean a lot to us. This is symbolic of a very dangerous situation confronting our nation. We need your help and we need your support. Without you, we would be nothing. Yes, we accept awards, but those awards really would be nothing if people like you did not get out there and join the fight. So we ask that you continue to fight with us, and we won't let you down. And we will mobilize those forces with the numbers that we have and reach out to other caucuses to let them know we're not going to allow anybody to turn the environmental clock back. Thank you for allowing me to be here, and God bless you. Also, I have to introduce my other colleague, Reverend Avery Alexander, who's here, also representing the Black Caucus. And when you talk about history, and this man has been an historian, when you talk about the civil rights movement in Louisiana, if you can go back a number of years, and I always, every time I see the picture of this man being just physically dragged down the steps of the City Hall in New Orleans, and at his age, which is only 19, ain't loud in medicine. At his age, this man here is demonstrating more energy than many of the young people in our state. If there's an example you should use, Reverend Alexander is that example, because he has really been a force to be reckoned with in the legislature and in politics in Louisiana. And you need to give him a hand for being here tonight. Thank you.
Since Skip is already standing and we want Reverend Alexander to come up as well,
Ron Chisholm is going to make a couple of presentations to our legislators.
First of all, it's a pleasure to come down from New Orleans and just to be able to present these awards to three fine persons that two of them I know indirectly of their work, and and one of them I had an opportunity to work with in New Orleans for over 20-some years. And even though we have a large legislative black caucus, sometimes people with a large state black caucus, it's still difficult to find some folks who are going to take the leadership role. And it's just an opportunity to be here and to give the first award to Brother Kip Holding, who I've heard up to date, and not only does fine work in the Capitol, but I also knows he walks with the people, he talks with the people, he also demonstrates with the people if necessary. And it's an honor to be able to give this award, and Brother Kip. We also have another award. It's from Senator Cleo Fields, who I've been hearing about in New Orleans. Sometimes you be looking for somebody in Baton Rouge who take care of business, and his name keeps coming up over and over again. And I don't know if he's here today, but I'd like also to give this award to Senator Cleo Fields, a very fine senator. Last person I want to give an award to is Brother Avery Alexander, who was, Brother Kip talked about, he has a lot of history, but I think what's so important about his history that he's consistent. He says it's a protracted struggle, it's a long struggle. It looks like the brother gets energy, some people get tired, and like, I don't know what it is, and when you come from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, and go to this place and go to, just everywhere. If he's not fighting, he's going to jail. He's not going to jail, just over and over again. So it's a pleasure for me to come down and for the Gulf Coast Tennis and for Southern and the various organizations that even asked me to be a part of this, give these awards. I'd like to very much with a great honor to give this plaque to Brother Avery Alexander. Very consistent brother.
I know Rev will say something. I've never been in the same room. Anybody give you anything, you didn't say something. Would you like to say a word, Rev?
Well, I'm sure you don't want me to preach. Neither do you want me to make a speech. Kip has alluded to age. I don't know what it means, chronological age or sociological age, or the age that I use to describe when I say a man becomes old. He forms a set of crystallized habits, which resist alteration. Whether he's 8 or 80, I haven't reached either one of those ages yet. I want to express my appreciation to you for thinking about me. And from the way these fellows talk, I think they believe that I am an old man. And I really believe they have that in their minds sometimes. I don't know why. I don't know where to get that stuff. I heard Ron say that he had only known me 23 years. Thank you, Ron. But I say that everything needs fixing. And whether you know that you can fix it or not, you have the responsibility of trying. And so I confess, I have not fixed everything, but God knows I've tried.
We do have another award that we'd like to have presented at this time. I'm going to ask Mrs. Alcee Cage, President of the North Baton Rouge Environmental Action Association, to make that presentation. Alice Cage.
Peter Chambers. He works for the newspaper. He's a man who gets out and get his work done. He believed in putting the news out like it is. He tells the story. This is something we do appreciate, and we believe in our heart that he deserves this award. I've been informed that Mr. Chambers is not here today. He had a previous engagement out of town. But there is someone else here who is going to receive his award. That person is Mr. Crawford. Mr. Crawford, would you come forward to receive?
Mr. Crawford got to sit here, he got called away, so sorry, pregnant, he had to leave. He just left a few minutes ago.
All our business. Mr. Crawford had to leave. So, is there anyone else that's close to Mr.? Oh, I have been given that opportunity to present it to him, and I am very happy to do that. So thank you very much.
We also have presentations of certificates of recognition. And to do that, the chairman of it's called the Department of Biological Sciences. I used to call it the Biology Department. It's Dr. George Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. I have the honor to present certificates of recognition to young men of action who are doing things and who need our help. I will read the certificate. Certificate of recognition. This is to certify that Representative Avery Alexander is hereby awarded this certificate of recognition in appreciation of your legislature's efforts to eliminate the remaining vestiges of race and class exploitation and bring about liberty, justice, and economic opportunity for all for the year of 1992. The Gulf Coast Tenants Organization, Southern Organizing Committee for Social and Economic Justice, Louisiana Environmental Action Network, and Southern University, Baton Rouge.
Thank you, sir.
I have a similar certificate for Representative Melvin Kip Cole.
Well, since we're in the spirit of giving, I have a plaque here for Representative Charles Jones, who was not able to be with us. As I understand it, there was death in Representative Jones' family. I'm going to ask Kip to come forward and accept this plaque. And I'm going to read the inscription. It says, presented to Charles D. Jones in appreciation of your outstanding leadership of the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus. Again, by the Gulf Coast Tenant Organizations, the Louisiana Environmental Action Network, the Southern Organizing Committee for Economic and Social Justice, and Southern University, April 26, 1992. At this time, we'll ask Dr. Robert Collins to bring acknowledgments, after which there are two acknowledgments I would like to make, and we'll have a benediction. Dr. Collins.
I have a very important job here to do as acknowledger, and that job is always an important job because an acknowledger is one who strokes. And I am stroking here the members of my committee. I am the chairman of, I better say the titular chairman of the Earth Week, Southern University Earth Week Committee. I will begin stroking these individuals right now. The reason I'm stroking him so hard, and I want to know that I'm stroking him, is because next week we have an agenda of things to do. Like we got, because see, this day is kickoff to the Earth Week celebration, which is on up into Friday. We'll have a big parade on Friday. And we're going to have an essay contest, a poster contest, a tree planting, research forums, and the big parade. So I'm stroking you now. Mr. Peter Morrow, is he here? I didn't see him in here. Mr. Morrow probably is off doing something people like to do right now. Oh, I see Dr. Alma Page. Is she here? Dr. Alma Page, she's not here for her stroke, so I guess I can. All right. Dr. Beverly Wade, I see her. And Dr. Beverly Wade, I want to really stroke you because we must get that parade on its way. Dr. Wade is essentially the main choreographer of the parade that we're going to have on Friday. And I want to go, Dr. Wade, stand up, stand up. And you notice I said that I was the titular chairman of the SU Earth Day Committee. The real head of it is Mrs. Florence Robinson. Florence, Mrs. Florence Robinson. She said, and see, I want to tell you about Florence. Florence has been organizing this thing, and she's been losing sleep, scuffling up the stairs out of breath, all week long, just worrying with this thing. And so I really want to continue to stroke her really hard, because Florence has really worked hard to get this whole thing going, including bringing Dr. Chambers here to get her excellent